All things Aussie hoops and NBL fantasy. 3 blokes catching up over a can of 3. So many things that we cannot wait to see. As McDowell wiped up the keys, will Suarez be raining 3s? After Brisbane said no Franks, the 36ers said yes please. They chose a second serve of Randall as United win a sweep. We think Walton's hard to handle. If Doyle rules, they're hard to beat. We love some Tucker. Wardenberger's got the lot. There's no cheese, but there's big sauce, and now Bangers gets the shot. Can a mango pick and roll fill the gorge-sized hole? Or do they need a lift greeder to restore their heart and soul? The Kings can focus on the books, so long as their man Xavier cooks. Will there be Magnay regret? Does R. Kelly fly with Majet? Will Thomas be a tank with Manic and LT? And I do beg your pardon, but we rather like Brad Lee. Cleveland, this is for you! We want more of the same from 22. G'day, listeners. You're back with Benny, Banksy, and Boydie, the basketball blokes, dribbling all things Aussie hoops and NBL fantasy. And we back. We back.
I'm back.
For a round
one done.
That's it.
Round preview, all that jazz. Unfortunately, the COVID has struck the Boyd residence, so we are doing this via this online-y thing that you use.
The online thing, which could very well equate to this coming on YouTube. So I noticed Banksy's got his, he's done his best to get 10 minutes of beauty sleep. 10 minutes of beauty sleep, was it?
Just for men through the beard.
Just in time, yeah. We were podcasting at 8 p.m. local time, and I think I slept till 7:57, so raring to go.
Oh, nice. Yeah, good.
Massive congrats to Brad Winter of the pick and roll, Kiwi boy, for taking out the round.
Nice.
Any advice for him, Banksy? Previous leader of the competition. What should he not do?
What should he not do? Trade in any New Zealand players.
Oh, there you go. Yanni got you last year, right?
That's it.
All right. I don't know about you guys, but I was unsure if the game was going to be open. We decided to do the podcast on a Tuesday night, given we've got a Thursday game.
Yep.
But good news. The stats, firstly, they were adjusted within like an hour of the game. Banksy, you were keenly following your number one captain choice's assists. He got an extra one, is that right?
He did. And it seemed to happen within an hour of the game finishing, I believe. So looks like they're pretty onto it this season, and we don't have to wait till the next day for stat adjustments, which can only mean the game will be opening on time as we see it.
And we do have the live scoring, so make sure you check that out whilst these games going on. And we used to see... We used to post the tweets, didn't we?
.com, by the way.
We posted the tweets with the adjustments, didn't we? It was like, Xavier Cooks is going to get plus 10.
Yep.
It didn't happen this week, but... so that's great. That's happening straight away. And we got word that they're aiming to open 10 a.m. the following day after the last game, which... Massive improvement, guys.
Which is great for us because I don't know if you've had a look at the next few rounds, gents. We've got Monday night games and then we've got Thursday night games again, pretty much for the next foreseeable future. Which means we may struggle at times to get a Tuesday night because I play basketball on Tuesdays. Not tonight because we've got the COVID striking myself and another household in my team's family, unfortunately.
So what are you saying, Boyd? Inquire within.
Somehow I'm a unicorn still. I've got the tiger blood, but not too sure the rest of the household hasn't got the same tiger blood as me, which is a bit alarming now that I think about it.
Oh dear. Is that a good move? Is that a good moment to move on to the NBL fantasy news?
Let's do it.
NBL fantasy news.
Not happy. Can someone else read out the news?
Well, that's right.
I'll take it. Oh,
okay, good. Okay.
You guys are probably not happy about this. So the Phoenix tweeted a little bit earlier today. Good news, Phoenix fans. We'll just go with cheese. Will arrive in Australia earlier than expected, potentially being available for our game on October 15th.
Anyone watching this would have seen my reaction when we had the "there's no cheese but there's big sauce" intro song sort of thing. We're going to have to re-record that once you're in good health in your house.
Ruined.
That's right.
I think it's an easy fix.
Makes me think of a famous line from a movie. I'm a bit older. I'm not as old as Banks, but Benny, you might not know this one. There's a movie. Brendan Fraser actually starred in this one called Encino Man, and there was a role. There was a line in it where he actually spoke Spanish, and the only line of Spanish he knew was "The cheese is old and mouldy. Where is the bathroom?" So it made me think of this at the moment. Because the cheese has come back. It's got a bit of a smell to it for us fantasy coaches, especially if you've rolled with the sauce come round one, even though we did know about the cheese returning, but we thought it was going to be a little bit longer than that.
So we might have to change the wording to double cheese and some big sauce after the Whataburger. So sauce implications is what comes to mind first, and we'll talk a little bit about sauce now. So my big call was he was going to have 4 80-point games, and during half time he was at about 36 fantasy points, and
it was looking good.
It was great. He was dominating.
Put back.
I don't know if coach, because he didn't play any minutes in second halves during the blitz because he was always fouled out. I don't know if Simon Mitchell just decided that he forgot he was there.
Yep.
But I want to get your take, Boydie.
Yep.
You think that this will hurt Sauce, and we're going to maybe think of an exit plan, or what's your thoughts, mate?
I think so. I think you have to. Look, he only scored the 31. He only had the 25 minutes overall for the game. And look, the Sem have got a double this week, then a single next week, which is that October 15 game, but then 2 doubles after that. Now, look, the Cheese might not come in straight away and be playing 20-plus minutes. There might be a little bit of working him in. I'd say it almost all but kills Pinot's minutes. He had 14 in the game then, and also Tohi, if anyone, I doubt anyone would have. But so that's 16 minutes total in that game. Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, I think, because I think it will have an effect.
Got a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks.
It interrupts my trading plans because I was hoping to keep him through those doubles you say that they've got in round 4 and round 5, and then look to offload him thereafter if we needed to. But this is a bit of a spanner in the works because it's 3 weeks earlier than we hoped, isn't it?
Yeah, something along those lines. So it's probably, unfortunately, I think he's got good matchups this week in the Hawks and Cairns. So I'm holding for this week, but he's definitely in my plans possibly to be out next week. I mean, if he smashes it and has 60s this week, then maybe I'll think twice about that. The Cheese, it's only a single. You might be able to park him for a week if you've got other needs. But it's just a bit of an unknown. And I think we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. At this stage, you almost like to know they've got a place and what their minutes are and all that sort of stuff for fantasy production.
Indeed.
One thing that could work well, I mean, if you've planned ahead, you're likely to bench him next week on the single anyway. If you've got someone to come on for the double and benching him for the single next week, maybe you get a chance to have a look at what that looks like with Cheese in the squad.
Great point.
Before you have to trade him out the following week. So that's also an opportunity there.
Love it, Banksy. Like that. I actually like that a lot because I think I can do that.
It's worked. It's worked. I'm alert.
Tell you who else put in the work. And then we had some NBL history that we're going to go through. And this might not be the history that you're probably expecting, but it's all about Bryce Cotton. Do you want to talk about Bryce Cotton's line, Boydie? Yeah,
so the fact that the Wildcats actually tweeted was that Bryce is the first NBL player ever to record 20-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, and 5-plus steals in a 40-minute game. So absolute elite A player and B fantasy production there.
It did take me back to when you were talking about Bryce's game being a bit impacted in the lead interview.
Same.
But no, we're not going to get stuck into the Oracle this much. But
the Oracle's gone. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I got a little bit of story for you both.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you would have it, prior to lockout, family, friends sent me a couple of screenshots of their team and bench and just said, "What are your thoughts here?" We do. They had Cotton. They had Cotton with the big C on there.
Oh no!
And let's just say I don't think they're talking to me any longer.
Oh no!
Oh dear!
Oh dear!
Did he call you a big C?
No, he didn't. But how could we pick a 91 on a single? And that could even turn out to be the highest single scoring game for the season, potentially as well. So
Very much so.
Close.
We didn't see that coming, and we know Perth only had the one double game in the first 4 rounds. But Bryce was unreal, wasn't he?
I know we had a question in regards to Cotton and on Twitter, which is at @bball_blokes. If you want to get involved with us on the socials, and on Facebook, we're just Basketball Blokes. And I think the person wanted a bit of an idea of their team, and thankfully, if I remember, I think I might have replied, and I said Cotton. I like he was pretty highly owned. I can't remember what I said exactly, but I hopefully I convinced that person to keep Cotton for the week.
I know for a fact that on one of our nightcaps, mate, we said we are never not going to recommend you pick Cotton. If you want Cotton in your team, he's good. You know, that has been a line. It's not how any of us structured our team. But the winner of this round certainly had Bryce Cotton. Now, the other bit of history that happened, of course, was what you might expect us to talk about, and that is Adelaide beating Phoenix 134-124. Not Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, but the Phoenix Suns fellas. So just David versus Goliath. Like, they've got literally 100 times the salary cap. But if you join our Discord chat, we had a couple of blokes fill us in with the fantasy scores from that Adelaide game, which is what we're here to talk about. So, Boydie, care to share?
Yeah, sorry, my comp's playing up at the moment. So the fantasy scores of relevance, obviously, is the Adelaide players, not the Phoenix players. But we had Cleveland 45, Franks 55, Randall 54, and Macca 78. But someone conveniently, obviously, picked it up that we've got to convert that back to NBL game length, which is 40 minutes, not 48. So it ended up being AC 37.5, Franks 45.8, Randall 45, and Macca 65. Couple of points on this. The court have a lot more space over there, I think, and there's a little bit more room to move. We're a bit sort of compact over here, and also
no defensive 3 seconds makes all the difference.
And also let's be honest, it was a preseason game for kind of both teams. It wasn't a whole bunch of defense going on from what I saw. Now, I admit I didn't watch all of it. As I mentioned, got a COVID positive person in the household, so I'm 24 hours a day dad at the moment, and so I was taking care of a 2.5-year-old at the same time, but who conveniently wants to watch Blippi at every second moment. But
it wasn't a Pacers game, was it? So you weren't going to sit him in front because it wasn't a Pacers game.
No, it wasn't. When he was sick the day before, thankfully he wanted to just sit on my lap and watch the other games of basketball on Sunday, which is great. But yesterday, for some reason, wanted to run around in circles and do all that sort of thing. So, but yeah, look, I'd take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. I wouldn't think that that's going to be the norm come NBL round 3.
Why is it newsworthy then?
134 to 124.
Yeah, it ain't going to be that.
Newsworthy, Banksy? You posted a tweet. You posted a tweet in our group chat, and Peter Hooley's followed that up, because I think this is why it is in fact newsworthy. Care to explain?
Well, it all revolves around Randall, I believe, and Pete Hooley tweeted, "I've been told that one Adelaide star has had strong interest from numerous NBA teams since their win over Phoenix, and rightfully so. Be interesting to see how it plays out." Now, obviously, that would be Randall, I believe, and I read another separate tweet there that we don't have, but 10 plus NBA teams he'd already heard from and have reached out apparently. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out, but hopefully we get to see him for the duration of the season as it stands.
It's been amazing to watch the Adelaide fans, right? So they're the talk of the town. Everyone's high on life, right? We've got the whole of Australian basketball world, Adelaide fans for the day. They win, it's a big celebration, and it's like the hangover the next day. Oh, dear. Can we get the whole squad back, please?
Yeah. I mean, at least they've got time to grab a replacement, possibly. And who knows, like, it's off one game, you know. He did some pretty big things in the G League last year as well. What do you average, 25 in there, something along those lines. So he had some decent games there. So let's not see, but it seems like he's definitely got some interest. especially at the moment while teams are still sort of formulating their final roster. I guess it's a bit of a worry.
Let's be honest, he shot the lights out. He's not likely to do that in the second game. So let's wait and see.
We'll wait and see.
Wait and see.
Has the Oracle lost his touch? Let's find out in this week's NBL Fantasy Round review.
That is the question.
Yes.
Do we have an answer?
Yes, he has. And I'd like to formally announce my resignation from NBL Fantasy right now. See you later.
Hey,
All right. I'm not going to do a Banksy and chuck a wobbly after round one. 374, I think I scored. Equal with Tommy Hirsch. So, you know,
Experts.
sometimes legends have a bit of a struggle week, but they come back fighting. And I think I was just talking to Benny before Banksy was finishing his power nap that I think I only have to do one trade this week. So, you know, when you're only doing one trade, things are going okay. So
Sounds like you're set up, mate.
yes. So the Boyds, look, the deep ballers had a struggle week, I must say, and probably worse thanks to you blokes, to be honest.
Yeah, explain that for us.
Okay, so look, I was all in on big Willie McDowell White, and you guys talked me out of it. As I mentioned, this seems like the 15th time I've said this, but COVID's hit the house. It was a bit of a panic. My team wasn't set. I was too busy over the few days before we started, NBL Fantasy started doing admin stuff, Patreon stuff, all that sort of stuff. Hopefully I got that. What's this? What are you
Counting excuses, sorry.
Oh, here we go. And I did have big Willie McDowell,
Millie.
and you boys talked me out of
Cost that soon.
saving money and going with Madut instead. So that's cost me because...
Look, we did say what we were
Anyways.
doing as an alternative, but yeah.
And at the time, I had
I
DeWalt
don't remember
starting,
this
I had J-Rob
conversation
on the bench.
at all.
I had J-Rob on the bench rather than starting, and I had DeWalt starting, and so that cost me points there, and had Big Willie style sitting there as well, so you've cost me 20 points there, or whatever it is there, and just look.
I didn't know we had the keys to Bordy's team, Benny, to be honest.
Well, you did at that
Pretty
stage. You didn't
influential.
realise the panic that I had. I had sweat coming down my
There was 15 tabs
as
open.
I was.
You want to talk? You want to
There
talk
was
panic,
15.
Bordy? Did you see on our Twitter messages? Nathan Stremple was putting a team together with 3 minutes left in the gold medal game, and he still managed to get his squad together with some tips from Tommy H. So, no excuses there.
Fair to say, Stremfel beat me. So obviously this week. So obviously he did
Scrambled
have more
well.
time than me. Had more time than me. Yes.
Bordy, your big call at the start of the year, one of your bold calls in our predictions pod was that people would regret picking bangers early and then being laughing later on. So you went with the Baines fade. What did you end up doing at those positions, and how do you think it went?
How do I think it went? I ended up going big sauce, and I ended up going. Interestingly enough, I went with Tim Suarez as a starter at the centre position, and Isaac Humphries on the bench as the centre.
Okay.
Just a bit of a value, trying to keep a bit of cash. I think I had 750k left over. So
Worth mentioning.
Pardon me.
Definitely worth mentioning the money.
Yes,
I know I will be.
Yeah, that's right. And the reason why, I mean, it's not a whole lot different from here, but Sydney have got the 3 doubles in a row, whereas Brisbane go double, single, double. I was a bit worried about that front court and the logjam there, which I think we talk about a bit later. So, yeah, I went with it. Broke even, I think, didn't I? Because I think Baines had 31 and Suarez had 30. So
Yep, all very similar. Beautiful.
Yep.
I was the average bloke this week. I had 460 points. Has me 246th in the universe. I just wanted to ask another follow-up. Bordy, how many jack jumpers, mate?
for me, 1.
Big deciding factor on rankings this week. So don't get too disheartened just
No, I'm
yet.
not.
All right?
I'm not.
Such a small sample size. There's a lot of
all
water to
good.
go under the bridge.
All right, so 3 Jack Jumpers in my squad. But, hey, for those, I got little Wilson's prom stubby holder here. I want to talk about my trip, all right? Just this is my chance. I haven't been able to talk to you guys about it yet. So, little story from my trip. So the one thing we were told about Wilson's prom was that the wombats will go for your food, right? So you pack it away at night. You don't have any in your tent. So night one of camping, we get out a box of Cadbury favourites. We've got a few kids there. Put it out.
Delicious.
And the kids pick what they like. No worries. We pack the food away, we pack it away in a container later on in the ute. All's going well. Kids go to sleep. We're in the gazebo setup, having a good time. We hear some movement coming from our tent. My wife Sarah goes to check it out. And as you could imagine, knowing Sarah, with very great composure and such grace, she explained to us calmly that there was a wombat in the tent.
Yes.
So whether or not that happened, you can leave that up to, I'll leave that to your imagination. So the wombat had actually clawed its way through the tent, through the side mesh of the tent, right? And it was munching on the single Turkish delight that one of my daughters decided to stash away for herself, right?
Oh, dear.
So she's pocketed it and put it in the tent with her. So to fix that, we had to cut a section of a brand new tarp, right? Get the safety pins out of the first aid kit and repair it. Mm-hmm. And as all this was happening, there was only one natural thing for me to be thinking of, right? What lessons can I take away from this to put towards my NBL fantasy team? And this is it, right?
Okay.
The lesson is we all have our favourites, but despite all our planning, like I must have told the kids 100 times, right? Don't put food in the tent.
Yep.
Unexpected things will happen.
Yep.
And you don't want to be patching your side up with a perfectly good tarp and safety pins when some hairy bastard claws through your side, right?
Yep.
So for that reason, I've actually got 970k sitting in my bank for round 2. So given that scenario, I'm pretty happy with my ranking. So I can go up to Cooks, I can get a cheapie up to $1 million. That's where I'm sitting at the moment. So every decision I made was I just picked the cheaper option, right? Now, one of the cheaper options I want to discuss right now with you, because we didn't really get a question about it, is Aquera over Humph. Now, I just honestly went the cheaper option to give maximum flexibility. In one round, you would say that Aquera looked like a good option, but I'm thinking of reversing that this week. Banksy, what was your lineup with those two? What did you do?
I faded Hump in the end as well. Not that I wanted to. It was more what I wanted on the court for round 1, which left me with Aquera as my bench center's position as well. Which I didn't think it was a complete stuff up or anything like that. I think he slightly went up in value. He didn't lose value at least, but Hump didn't set the world on fire either with his fantasy production. So it wasn't a great loss, was it?
No, like I think if you looked at it round 1, you'd probably say it was a win, but I'm thinking of reversing that for round 2 because the simple reason now is that I think Humph might be playable, right? And I don't think that Aquera will be. So I'm looking to maybe keep Big Sauce and stash. I need that backup centre option now for Williams, and it could very well be Humph. So how do you think Humph looked, Boyd, as an owner, just for movement and how things were going?
Yeah, look, I'm happy, to be honest. I know a lot of people were writing him off. Even on the Discord chat, there was some chatter. But, I mean, he stuck it out there for 20... He had played 27 minutes, which I probably think is probably a little bit high, although they had the overtime, didn't they? But he played a lot of the overtime, played a lot of the stretch. He did. So I think that's
so 21 minutes without the OT.
That's it. I think that's a good sign, though, myself. So... Wait, and I'm happy holding. Like I paid $600 for him or whatever. He's down a little bit. Not too worried. My little tidbit there, I just got to say it before you move on, is don't take the girls to Yosemite in the States then, because
we're getting coyotes or something.
That's the bears, mate. The bears get in there. So ideally, a wombat's harmless, pretty much. You don't want no damn black bear getting in and trying looking for that Cadbury favourite. Although I kind of had the hint that it might have been because they wanted us to spend all that cash at the exorbitantly expensive cafe with the dodgy chips and hot chips and and schnitzels or whatever. But who knows? Maybe it's true that the Bears can get in your car and stuff like that, I guess. But
lesson learned. Is Humph playable for you, Boydie?
Yes, he is, sir.
Excellent. Top bloke, maintaining it from last season, Banksy.
Only just, Benny. I was only 4 points ahead of you, 464 points, which had me 200th. So I think that shows you how close those top couple of hundred or so are. So 4 points is a difference of, 46 positions in the rankings. As you speak about the JJs, I started with all 4 of the big JJs, which was an interesting decision. I know you're not a great fan of that decision. This week, I'm likely not starting any of them, just the way my team's structured. I'll have Robinson and DeWalt come on for 2 of them, and I'll likely trade out the other 2 to players with a good schedule. So I don't think it's the worst decision. I would have liked to seen better scores from them in an up-tempo game last night, so that wasn't great. But I think the biggest decision of mine, which really had was a difference maker, was starting with Cooks. I did not have him in my team all season, and I think as I read more and more and looked at more of other people's teams that had Cooks in there and their arguments for that, I got a little bit scared off, and that's where Hump went out to raise the money to get X in my team. Now I know a lot of people are jumping off early after he's 29, but I watched that game very closely. I really liked what I saw. He was very aggressive. He lost a lot of points from his free throws, so no doubt he'd be spending his week at the free throw line in training. But I know there's some concerns about his rebounding. Simon played a big part in that, along with their bigs. So
lots more discussion to come about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I think that's the big thing that I jumped on very, very late in my team was a bit of a restructure to fit X in, where the play was obviously so far anyway to fade him, and I wish I had stuck that out. But
what about the other X?
The other X? Well, I got the wrong X, didn't I? I was
close.
I've been big on XRM in the preseason, and he exploded. I only saw the back half of that game, but look at that stat line. I mean, it couldn't have even been worse. One more, I think it was assist, and he would have got the double-double bonus there as well. But looks like he is the leader of that team, and I know there was no Willie there. He's still to come back, but got the maximum 100k increase, and I think there was only 2 guys that did that. So there we go.
All right. Speaking of Illy and injuries, let's go on to our favourite segment.
The Injury Report with Dr. Boyd.
My favourite segment. So I don't have to do anything. I just sit here. It's great.
I hope it's not your favourite segment, but I feel like looking at this list, I think almost Dr. Boyd needs his own show, which obviously he's been campaigning for a while now to get his own show.
I have done an update on the injury list, right? It is on basketballblokes.com, and it is the only injury list on the website, and I have done my best job of updating it. So you can go have a look at this.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd's assistant. Yes, he's been, but Dr. Boyd's been campaigning for his own show for a while now, as you two are aware, and probably just deserved, to be honest. We've got returning players, Norton and Wagstaff for Perth, both played some decent minutes. Mitch Creek obviously played a lot for them and got a fairly decent score as well. Then last night, Big Majok Deng returned for Cairns. The most, pardon me? With a bang, yes. I think he scored 40-odd, was it? 45. So 45 in approximately 25 minutes. So
can I ask you, Dr. Boyd, before you move on to your next segment there, as a doctor, what were your thoughts on Mitch Creek's hair? Is it a healthy look?
Yes. Yeah. All good.
Oh.
I think it's
that's all you got.
I've got nothing for you. Dr. Boyd's got nothing for you.
All right.
No extra skin cancer risk.
Especially, I would have preferred a little bit of product in the hair to sort of give it that yellow blend. But it's Dunnybrush white, and I think he rolled with it. And what he end up with the score? I think he scored. He played 35 minutes and had 41 points. So. Nothing to sneeze at there from Big Mitch Creek. Majok Deng looked good, especially with Pinder going down. It looked like he was gone for the season at one stage there. and so we were very worried because Pinder is my boy, and look, he also got in the 40s in last night's game. Looked very good, albeit against the Jack Jumpers, who are lacking in a little bit of a height there. Now, players we received updates on, we've got Glover with his knee week to week, possible round 3. Peatling knee, extra 3 to 4 weeks. Magnay knee, early November. Steindl, shin, early November. McDaniel shoulder expected back for round 2, which is interesting at Tassie to see how, because their numbers were all over, as in minute numbers were all over the place last night. Jalen Galloway missed with knee soreness. Illy missed with concussion. That was a game time, or pretty much they announced on the day of the game. I think
has been for weeks.
Yep. So who knows what is going on there? As we know, with concussions, very unable to give you a heads up until the day. Jonah Antonio for Cairns missed. Should be available round 2. Ones to watch, we noticed Antosevic went off in the first half and did not come back. He only played 6 minutes overall for Phoenix. Undisclosed what that was at the time. Didn't really see any incident at all. So what's going on? And lucky last one in the ones to watch is Terrell Harrison for Brisbane. That logjam's just going to get even worse up there when he comes back with an arm. We're not sure on timeline there. I cannot read what is in the run sheet. Close to returning, Gary Brown for the Sem Phoenix to be assessed round 2. That is a big red flag for any of y'all who have got Adnam or are looking to bring in Adnam after he's 47 or whatever he had on Saturday night.
It was always going to be a flag.
Correct. Not expected to be back this week. Greeda is hammy. Few months. Rowdy Brokoff, hammy as well, looking at possibly round 3.
On track.
Another flag for Adnam, probably a flag for Madut there as well, a little bit. And Cal, again, another flag, round 3. Trey Cal for Sem Phoenix, flag for Madut, etc.
So a bit of planning needed there if you got Adnam or Madut by the looks.
Yep.
Questions about Junior coming up after this.
Yep. More after later.
Failing to plan is planning to fail. It's time for the Schedulizer.
All right, so I think with your trades, you've got to look at the schedule 2 ways, depending on how your team's structured. Like Bordy said, possibly only using the one trade this week. So you've got your short term, you've got your long term. So best short term, we've got Sydney, as we know, with the 3 straight double rounds. So those like myself who have Xavier Cooks, that's why you brought him in for these next 3 straight doubles. As we know, Tassie have another 2, and then the Hawks start back-to-back doubles, which is good for owners of Robertson and co. If you're trading longer term, which it sounds like that's what Bordy would be looking at if he's just using the one trade. So it might be luxury trades as such. Melbourne have a single this week, but then as we know, they've got that amazing schedule of 9 doubles over 10 rounds. So as we know, with guys like XRM, bound to go up in price again this week after going up to 100K. I wouldn't disagree if you were going to go a week early there, particularly if you can park him on the bench for a week before he goes up another 100K and get ahead of the ball game with that Melbourne schedule there. Same sort of goes with the New Zealand guys. If you're going to jump on like a Beamer, for example, single this week, but then they've got 6 doubles over the following 7 weeks there. So you've got your short-term teams, but then if you're set up well, you're structured well, like it sounds Bordy is, then nothing wrong with looking at the longer term and jumping on some of these guys before they increase another 100K or so.
Thank you, Banksy.
Need an adjudication on who to trade in this week? How about a ruling on who to sit or start? Let's see who submitted their case for judgment in the Fantasy Full Court.
First one is all about Captain Hindsight, and Banksy is our captain's man. You care to read it out, mate?
Dylan G. So with the benefit of hindsight, role clarity and taking into account the schedule, who are the must-haves aside from DeWalt and Robinson? So he's listed a few guys here, I guess, for us to rank. Beamer, Simon, Pardon, Hogg, and Thomas from Perth.
All right.
Hogue, sorry.
So do we both agree that Walton Jr. and Robinson would be must-haves, ideal trade targets.
Absolute locks. If you don't have them, I'd be targeting them first and foremost.
Is there anyone else in our teams, as they stand, that we would put in that? I think Beamer, like with hindsight, I think...
Willie McDowell-White.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think that he...
He looks like a
definitely
triple-double threat almost, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly does have the keys. The Blitz, God, it killed us. He was literally my first pick in there for a very, very long time.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Simon later on, and these other three that we've got covered, right? I can't say that Thomas is must own right now. So I kind of want to look at our own fantasy teams and see what we like about that. Like, who would be the trade targets at the moment? Is there anyone in there that you still feel really comfortable with?
Well, I'm actually targeting two of them myself this week.
Okay.
As it stands, could change, but obviously got the first two. I think all three of us have DeWalt and Robinson. Is that right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm trading out two of my Tassie guys because they were going to the bench anyway, and I will be targeting Beamer before he goes up more in price.
As
He
am I.
will sit on the bench this week and come on for their nice stretch thereafter.
I'm doing that too.
Yeah, I've got the other two must-have kings, or you might not call X a must-have, but I've got Xavier and I've got DeWalt there as well. So based on schedule, based on what I saw from Simon in that Sydney game in round one, he was going to be my other trade target. So I would probably rank those guys as Dylan has them there. In terms of who, my trade priority would be. But if you're talking must-have, then Beamer's probably the only one from the list that I would see as being a must-have thinking forward.
Okay. A couple of players I'm really happy with structurally. Was really happy with Wardenberg. Like, I just see him sitting there for a long time.
Yep, same with me.
I'm not put off by Tucker when we're going to talk about him a little bit longer. I just think with the schedule and stuff like that, if you didn't have him, I think you're getting a little 50k discount on what someone else might get. So a 5k discount. So I still think structurally he's really, really good to have. And I'm still high on Humph, to be honest. But so we got another question from Charlie asking about the top 5 trade targets. Basically the names we've listed, right? If you don't have any of those names we've listed, they would be the ones to target.
Yep.
I think they are for money making and that for sure. I don't think there's any other ones.
No. I think that there's plenty of other options that are there, which we'll discuss, no doubt, very soon. Next category is all about cooks. So I might read this one out, and there's the Cooks owner, Banksy. I'd love your thoughts, mate. So from Maddie, not you, Banks. With Derek Walton dominating possession, Justin Simon crushing the boards alongside him, and Sydney seemingly at full strength now, is Xavier Cooks actually a can't-miss prospect for the next 3 weeks? We'll start with that one there.
Well, there's good argument that he's not must-have. I think what helps him, if you've already got him, you're not going to trade him out. I considered it for all of 10 seconds, and I think I even asked you guys what your thoughts were as well. But because I got the three doubles in a row, he's going to be staying in my team for that duration. And it's such a small sample size. I mean, prior to that game, no one was questioning him. If he was in your team, he was in there for good reason, based on the ceiling we saw last season. We didn't take anything out of the blitz. We know what X can do. He was aggressive. He put up 24 actual points in the game. We didn't get the rebounds we'd normally see. He just had the 4 rebounds. But I think, in that Sydney squad, I think we're going to see games where the rebounds go to different guys and they just weren't falling to him like they normally would have. We didn't see the defensive numbers. There was no steals, there was no blocks. And I just can't see with X's game how that's just going to change for the season long just based off one game. We're not going to see him go games and stretches without steals and blocks. So I think if he hadn't missed those free throws, he got the extra few rebounds, add some defensive stats in there as well that are going to come. It's just not possible for him to forget how to post steals and blocks. They're going to come. Then we're going to get back to those better scores of 50 plus that we're expecting from X at his price. So I'm holding strong, and I'd suggest you do if you're an owner.
Sounds like an owner to me, but Bordy, any thoughts?
Look, he lost 12 points on free throws missed and turnovers, which is a little bit unlike him. I'm not sure that he gets maybe... Oh, look, I think he does. I think he picks up the other areas again. He'll definitely pick up some boards, I think. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But I think if you're a Cooks owner, you're keeping him. I wouldn't be trading him out, to be honest, because he's very likely now to come back and turn around and have a 60 or something in the next game. So
so 750k Boyd in the bank. Your one trade, are you prioritising an import up to Cooks, or you're looking at a rookie up to someone else?
No, I'm not doing that at the moment.
Okay, very good.
I just think at this stage I am a little bit more focused on value appreciation rather than all-out points. And that's why I sort of kept my... Well, in the end, I kept 750k in the bank just to sort of fix any errors, which this week I'm probably going to trade up to William McDowell-White, and the consequence will be Madut, I would think. Just a bit of red flag there with on the weekend. Over the weekend, and then with the returns of the other guys coming back. Even though I didn't think, I actually kind of liked the look of him. I think as a cheapie, he could sit there and earn you some value if you've got no other option but to keep him. It was just more from my team. I just need to trade someone, and he was the odd man out, basically.
Beautiful. So I agree that he's not must-own, but I talked about the benefit of a non-owner picking him up, right? So I'm in that position as well. So if you're a non-owner, Cooks is owned by, about 1,800 or something. It's a high percentage of ownership, right? If you were to get him in round 2 and hopefully get all those nice captain scores and things like that, you have got the upper hand on half the close to half the competition that owns him, right? You've got him at 100k discount. You haven't had that bad score. You've likely had someone score more. So even though there's a chance that he could go down more, you literally lock in an advantage on nearly half the competition by getting him this week. If he bowls out and you don't have him, maybe the remainder of the competition get that advantage back over you. So something to consider. Bucks has asked, in fact, the question you kind of answered earlier about holding or trading Cooks. Now, exact sort of scenario that everyone's going through. So you can get Cooks out and Cooks and Aquera out to Hogue and Pardon. Does look very tempting in that exact scenario.
Yeah.
Hogue and Pardon. It does make, when you put names to the situation, how strong is your faith in holding Cooks, Banksy?
Well, I think these questions are interesting, Cooks and Aquera, but Aquera's on your bench. So although you're upgrading Aquera to a playable player, at least this week anyway, that player is going to be sitting on your bench. So are you really improving with that trade your on-court points? Or are you taking a downgrade just so you can upgrade a bench player? So, it's that short-term versus long-term game, isn't it? So long-term, that might be the way to play, like Bordy said, if you're going for value appreciation. And look, to be honest, if Cooks didn't have the 3 doubles in a row, then yeah, I would absolutely entertain that thought. But he's got the best schedule. You would have started
with him in the first place.
Exactly right. That's why I started with him. I'm not going to trade him out now when he's got a run of doubles. That's why I brought him in. So I think what has made it interesting is a lot of people obviously saying DeWalt's going to be an automatic captain this week, and rightfully so if you don't have X. Sure, he was amazing. He looked absolutely elite, but I'm going to stick by my guns. There's a reason that I got scared off, wasn't there? And that's why Cooks ended up in my team. So I'm going to stick for now. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. And that's why fantasy's so interesting. There's not a clear answer. You could go one of two ways, but I think if you started with him, I'm keeping him. Questionable if you'd bring him in if you didn't start with him.
I think we've covered that off really well, guys. Some more Kings discussion. Boyd, man, do you want to read out Spacey's question?
Yeah, Spacey's. I already have DeWalt and Cooks. Would you be adding Simon to be a case, or will adding Simon be a case of too many Kings spoil the broth? Concerned one might have a down week, so is diversification a better strategy?
My favourite question of the night.
Yes, I don't think 3 is too many. They got 3 doubles in a row. They're the only team that does have that. And so, but the other thing to think about is there's a lot of the teams have 5 games in the next 3 rounds as well, so you're not getting that big of
schedule edge.
An edge. And so, and if you've got coverage for that single with, say, another good player, for let's say, for example, Luke Travers and Tucker, if one Perth got the double this week, but then Melbourne's got the double next week and the week after, so you can kind of ride that out if you're going to start Tucker. Travers this week and then Tucker the next 2 weeks. I don't think it's that important to have Simon, for example. But if you're struggling and you need someone at that position, then maybe it's a good idea. And there's nothing wrong with. I think they're going to play pretty well, and I think Simon got points all over the place, didn't he? So
simple for Simon. That's right. But
Simon, yeah.
So my stance on this, it's kind of almost like a NFL fantasy concept, right? Where if you've got your quarterback, in daily fantasy, you don't start him with your running back because you're kind of barracking for one against the other. So if you've got Cooks, right, and you're probably going to make him captain and you want him to really do well, you're kind of barracking against Simon.
Yep.
You don't want Simon stealing those boards. That's kind of where I sit with it. Now, Banksy is the man who started 4 bloody jack jumpers. I don't know what your perspective is going to be. You just load up on the schedule. But obviously they had the big schedule edge as being the only team on the single for the first week. But what are your thoughts on the Kings triumvirate?
Stinks of deja vu. 61 points he scored in round 1. And if you look back to when he was in the league, started round 1 with 69 and backed it up with another back-to-back with another 69 points in the second game. I don't know how you know that round 2. You must have been doing some research. But look, I just think this Sydney squad's elite. I mean, there's a reason that did we all pick Sydney in our predictions podcast as being the championship team again this season? Like that team is elite. There's no reason why all 3 of them can't eat and feast with fantasy production if they're predicted to win a lot of these games. So
counter argument to that, though.
Well, blowout?
No, I mean they're elite. Everyone needs a share. I like shit teams with a couple of good players. That's how I like for fantasy. You know who to target. You know all this sort of thing. So,
and that's actually what scares me. I mean, looking at
Simon
at Tassie stack, they got blown out, and look what happened to their fantasy scores. So,
yeah, look, I like Simon. I'm not saying don't get Simon. We'll talk about him. But if I've got Cooks and I don't know. I think I'm diversifying.
Yeah. And I think I'm on that. I don't mind it, but I think if you've got other options, then I think I wouldn't be necessarily running to get Simon in.
Yeah. So speaking of Simon, let's talk about the alternatives if we were going to go down that way. So Watto's asked King George, Hogue, Tucker, Simon for small forward. So he's made a little comment there that Tucker seems like he only has a great schedule and tickets on himself, which I don't mind. It's fine as long as he can fantasy. Hogue, my God. So little inside information here. A line that did not make the intro song was calling it now. The Cairns won't be a bore. With a Hog and that roster, all they'll do is score. And didn't they just... And it was like a little thing, the ball, Hog, the pun there. It was just, I was really happy with it. But the guy's name's Hogue. His name's Hogue. It ruined everything. That's right. So we can't have any Justinian, Tasmanian. We're past that now. So, obviously, that's where I'd like to take it. He's been probably who we've got most questions about, being the high scorer. Thoughts on the Hoagie?
I kind of, throughout the game, I actually didn't notice him a whole lot.
Wow.
And then
you said in our chat
too. That's right. I said that's why I'm being honest here, mate. And in our private in our group chat, I said he's not really doing too much except scoring. And then Banksy's like, "Have you actually looked at the box score?" And I think he had 2 steals and 2 blocks at the time, or something along those lines. I think it's a bit of a red flag, his scoreline. He had 4 blocks in that game, 2 steals. I think he's going to be a scorer, and I think we talked about that in the Blitz nightcaps as well. he's not overly active for boards. Did have 5 last night, and he had the 4 assists to go with it for his score of 64. I'm not sure. I think that might be his ceiling for this year. I reckon that's it. That's his highest score for the year.
It's a big call.
That's controversial. Yeah, and with Cairns, they're just so manic. I'm scared. I'm scared to go with anyone. I've got Wardenberger, and that's, I think, all I'm doing. A, for their schedule. I mean, they've got double, single, double, and they've got a run of 3 singles. And B, because they're just manic. They're just. It seems like sometimes their legs are working faster than their brains a little bit. They're just go, and they're not.
Fun to watch.
I think they're going to be turnover happy. They're going to be, they're just going to, they might put the most shots up, but you lose points for every 2 field goal you miss. Remember, so I'm just a little bit red flagged myself just watching them last night. Look, they might settle down this week. Hogue might still get his stat line beautifully, and it might be happy days, and I could be wrong. I'm just not really touching any of their guys, I don't think, at the moment.
I think I'm a little bit different. I thought he looked amazing, to be honest. And it was someone that went under the radar for me when I constructed my preseason team. But I think from here, like you said, the schedule's a big flag for me. 3 doubles, I think, over the next 9 rounds. I just don't think he's playable when you can get a guy at the same position. I know not everyone was on Tucker, and one of the guys that I faded very late, but when you've got a guy that's going to literally be playing at the same position that can put up similar scores from what we saw in the preseason, 9 doubles compared to 3 over the next 9 to 10 weeks, you got to take the guy with the schedule.
One point that I wanted to raise regarding Hogue, if you were to pair him with Cleveland and you look at the schedule, absolute perfect pair right through the game that Cleveland doesn't play. The Cairns have the double. If that is part of your plans, like you're talking schedule, Banks, if you're happy to steam him at your small forward, that is the workaround to counter Banksy's argument. If you can get some cashola for AC, do it.
Only round 12 is your point there, where they both got singles, but yes, apart from that, they're almost a perfect pairing. Even in that last round when Adelaide has the single, which is the grand finals round for fantasy, semi-final round, Cairns have got 3 games to Adelaide's 1. So you'd probably want to be looking at them then. And they're obviously the only team that has 2 triples.
How expensive might he be by then? It might be the only way to get him.
Something you need to think about. So if you've got the luxury and you can just chuck him on your bench for those singles all the way through, as Banksy pointed out, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 singles in the next, 9 rounds, which is a bit yuck compared to some of the other teams. So do your sums and see how you go. But yeah, not really liking that one. We might move on to their opponents from last night, gents. Bucks, who of the popular JJ's guys are worth holding versus trading? This is probably aimed at Banksy, seeing as he has, what did you say before? You got 8 of them or 9 of the JJ's? E.g., I'm looking at trading R. Kelly to Hogue and holding Majet and McVeigh on the bench. Banksy?
Yeah, so I've got the 4. Kelly is the first one to go for me. I've got him at 6-man, so that's an easy trade to whoever I really want there. The next one I'm trying to trade is Majet, just because he's the highest priced of the other 3. And I think he lost the most out of the other 3. And the trade targets, there's just so many good PG and SGs you can get in. If you don't have DeWalt, Robinson, Beamer, like XRM, like there's so many good PGs that are trending up in their price with the schedule to come, that I think Majet's got to be the next one to go. McVeigh, I'm happy to hold on to for now. I think he was basically up there. If you look at the small, I've got him at small forward, for example. So I think if you look at the average of the small forwards, he's doing enough. And his price actually went up. So McVeigh's a hold for me when I've got all 4. And I actually really like the look of Doyle. He didn't score well in that second game, but still looked really good. So I'm happy to hold him on the bench at least for another week, knowing we've got to trade the other 2 guys out first.
Banksy, what if I was to tell you that R. Kelly, over the course of their 2 games, was their best points per minute player at this point in time?
I would tell you he's not getting enough minutes. We talked in our chat watching last night's game, and he come on for a few minutes late in that first quarter. He looked really good. He was productive, scored 7 actual points in the game in no time, and then he was sat for a majority of the second quarter. So I don't want that anxious feeling watching him in the next couple of doubles for Tassie as to whether he's going to get the minutes to get that fantasy score when I can trade him to anyone at any position.
Midget to McDowell White for me this week.
That's what I'm looking at.
Exact same reason.
Yep.
Very good.
All right. Cheapies is up next.
Cheapies.
And,
Marco, probably the first
go for
one. Madronya was hurt by Dent's massive game. Would you expect him to get decent playing time, or would you consider moving him to another cheapie, e.g. McDonald, Foxwell, Dent, probably the 3 who got the most playing time?
I was happy with Mud. There's nothing wrong with it. I think there was some stats we talked about, like it was literally outscored his entire playing career. I think Matronia is still ahead in the rotation, and if Dent wasn't literally on fire with that flaming redhead of his, he wouldn't have got those minutes. To be honest, it was just a heat check.
I think it was just one of those freak games where he's come out and ripped it up. I think Mudd was possibly the first guard off the bench, if I remember.
Yep.
So I think he's probably the first one. And he did his job at 250k. He still made you some money. I know he only scored the 12. But with these 250kers, all you need them to be doing really is doing their job. This year, I don't think we've got any, MVP nos from years past that are 250k, but they're putting up 30 points a game type situations. You've sort of got to just peg away and just have those guys earning that sort of money, earning those sorts of scores. So, not that I'm greatest fan of Mudd as the cheapie, but I'm not sure that I'd be moving him necessarily.
What's the advantage you're getting? Is that it's just not worth the trade, right? There is no way that's worth the trade.
No, it's not worth it if you're only swapping it to one of those guys.
Your exit plans to get him to $1 million eventually.
Yeah, so McDonald's hot at the moment, obviously in Tassie, but will that continue? Not too sure.
McDaniel
obviously demanding minutes by the way he's playing. Foxwell's a no for me with Cal and Brown and even Rowdy to come back because it's different position, but I think those minutes will dwindle away for Foxwell. Dent, one-off game. Unless we really see some runs on the board where he's doing the same thing for the next few games, then I don't think we're going to see that continue. I'm pretty confident.
And that trade costs you money now. That trade actually costs you money now. So I don't think it's worth spending more money on that bench position when you're talking about trading out a guy that's likely to come in before Dent in that rotation anyway.
Yep.
Next cheapies, we've got Winston who asks about what we think about Medut and Watto as well. Of the 3 cheapies the majority have, I have all of them, Aquera, Wardenberg and Medut, who should be the first trade-out target. I think this is very, very simple. But thinking through it, I think I'm going to go against my simple advice. So you go first and I'll have a think about what I'm doing.
For me, it'd be Aquera. I haven't had Aquera in my side. You saw DB Barlow played far and above minutes compared to him, he looked good in the blitz when he was taking those minutes from the Humph was off after Huckporty going down. I just don't think we're going to see the minutes and production in real games now. Madut, I sort of see, and I had him in my side. Had 3 turnovers, which hurt him a fair bit. That was next 6 points. Hopefully, he'd tighten that up a bit, like maybe only 1. So you're looking at maybe around a 20, which is what you can ask for someone who's 300k. Still scored the 15 points, so it went up in 12k overall. I think there's still, at the moment, at least a spot for him, but he'd be the next one out because I think once Cal and Brown are back, as we've mentioned already, his minutes are slowly going to dwindle away. Wardenberg's the one I'd be keeping definitely out of those 3. While he didn't look fantastic, I think he only had the 17 points. I think he's doing a little bit. He'll work into games a bit more. It was his first game of professional basketball. I think he's going to warm up a little bit, and he only played the one Blitz game, whereas even Madut played all through the preseason, played their preseason games before the Blitz, etc. He's sort of in the zone a little bit more. Wardy's a few games back, so I'll give him some time.
Interesting. I think Wardenberg is a lock to stay. He's going to obviously build. He's going to get better. His fantasy production will improve. So he will make cash. I'm confident in that. As an owner of all three, I think all three of us have all three of these guys on our bench, I believe. So
no,
I'm
Boydie doesn't have a career.
No,
okay. So that's obviously the reason for your answer there. I'm more worried, as an owner of all three, I'm more worried about getting, I'm not doing it this week, but probably Madut, because just based on what we've seen, the Phoenix have a stack of guys to come back at similar positions. So if you're going to see anything different to what we just saw in round one, it's that Madut's going to lose minutes, whereas Wardenberg's going to increase, and Aquera, I mean, they don't, as it stands, unless they sign someone, we're not going to see any different to what we saw on the weekend. And would have liked to see a bit of a higher score, but I think at least we saw a score you can take on your bench at his price point. And I think there's also going to be games. I mean, we'll see how it plays out this week, but Hump played more minutes, I believe, than he was expected to play, playing the entirety of that overtime. Maybe we see more minutes for Aquera this week. Maybe Caroline gets in foul trouble. We've seen in the preseason where Caroline has been benched due to his play and only played limited minutes. So I'm hesitant to trade Aquera out over Madut first with all those Phoenix guys coming back.
Really interesting scenario. So I thought it would be easy, right? But I own all three. Madut is the one I'm most worried about because, as you mentioned, players coming in over the top of his opportunity, whereas Aquera is the backup centre with an injury-prone player in front of him. I'm trading out both in the next 2 weeks is my plan. So, but I'm more worried about Madut, but he's going out next week because he's got one more week of pure opportunity, starting probably 20-plus minutes.
He's got a double.
On the double, so I'm going to ride that out.
Yep.
I'm actually going to Aquera to Hump this week, I think, just because I want a playable player in those doubles. So that's where I'm looking at doing. I'll have money into the bank for next week. But
I like it.
That's how we're doing.
I forgot to make that point. I was meant to make that point when I was talking that Aquera's out this week because he's on a single. Madut's still got this week, which he's on a double, and those guys aren't back. Either three of them. Maybe Brown comes back, but I don't think he hurts him as much as he maybe hurts Adnam and Foxwell. I think Madut still sees minutes when Brown comes back. It's when Cal comes back and Rowdy come back that his minutes will dwindle, so you've got a little bit extra time there. And Banks, you hit the nail on the head with what you said about Aquera. He didn't play any minutes in the overtime. So obviously down the stretch, the Coach Vickerman doesn't really, I guess, want him out on the floor just yet. And that's a big red flag for me. He'd rather he'd rather Barlow out there than Aquera, which I think going forward is only going to be more of an impact. So I think,
we're at an hour, fellas.
Yep,
we're
sorry,
we're going to fly. This has been great, but we're going to fly through these last two. So quickly, in a word, fellas, just general sort of rules with this one. So Tucker to Simon this week, and then Doyle back to Tucker next week. So it's sort of like the back and forward trade. And Marco's got 9 on the doubles this week. He's going to get rid of Tucker for this week and then possibly bring another one back in. What are your thoughts on the 1 week rentals at this stage following the schedule? We'd approve of that, would we? Oh, shaking your heads. If that's generally you want to plan a bit more ahead.
Like I said earlier, I'm value appreciation more than anything, but Tucker went down in value, so you got to play that into a bit. Than trading up for Hogue. You'd think Hogue still goes up, even if he gets a 30-odd or something like that. You'd think he might go up just because he had the 57 or whatever he had. Cotton, legit. After what we saw on the week, and how can we not say you'd bring Cotton in for this double this round? I don't know their opponents off the top of their head. What have they got? Hawks and then Cairns. So you saw what DeWalt did to the Hawks. On the weekend. I'd be backing in Cotton there to score all right based on his form. And his hairstyle, obviously, gone back to some sort of hairstyle. It's not just normal. And
Banksy's baller rating.
That's it. And then Cairns, obviously, they're just so scattered. I would think that Cotton should rip them a new one as well. So, I'd be going Cotton for the week. If you got the luxury trade and you can do it, why not, Mark? I think it was Mark, wasn't it?
I think the only thing it does is one thing to consider is it ties up your trades for the following week. If you want Tucker in for that Melbourne stretch, you've already got him, you're trading him out, player or two goes down, all of a sudden you can't get Tucker in for that stretch. So just something to consider that you're tying up your trades for the following week.
Play each other that week. So Cotton plays Melbourne, but it's over in Perth. So I'd almost back Cotton in to rip it up that game too. We might see a run of form here based on what he did on the weekend. That should keep all our Red Army listeners happy out there too.
Good strategy question from Nathan V. Should we be considering the opponents faced in the first round when we're evaluating these sort of performances? So he's listed a couple of examples, but I've got we had Jordan McCallum currently sitting in the top 50. He tweeted that the Breakers shredded Melbourne's pick and roll defence, particularly in the first half. They conceded more points to the roll man than they did in any game last season. So thinking Pardon for example. So, but Bordy, talk to us about the advanced stats pack. How are you doing with it, with your spreadsheeting and the like?
Well, the spreadsheet's actually got COVID at the moment as well. That's something I didn't mention earlier. So, we'll see how that goes. Definitely a dry, sore cough on the spreadsheet. No, I'm working at it, mate. Should be done 24 hours. It's
Cool.
9:34 on Tuesday night, so I reckon it should be out. Yeah, it'll be out before next round. Be comfortably out before next round. But as I guess what those two questions sort of say is, do we, I think we read a lot into the opponents, as I just talked about in the previous answer to the previous question. Although there's a word in there, I don't even know what that means. Discombobulated.
Left you discombobulated.
Yes, it's left me He's fooling with my Mdula Umgamglada.
Oh my God. All right, Dr. Boyd, you should know that, Doctor. So Nick Turner specifically asked about Pardon. Doing like Pardon?
No.
Boyd loves Pardon. Banksy? We know how to take that from Boydie.
No, I don't. Seriously, don't.
You don't like
cool.
him? Okay. Well, yeah, he's definitely on my shortlist for next week with New Zealand's run. It's hard to argue. Why don't you like him, Bordy?
Because.
Okay.
No, I think
his name's Derek, and it's spelt funny.
Yeah, he'll go good this week as well. I don't know. I just don't think. I was wrong about what was that other big dude that New Zealand had before last?
Oh no,
who was it?
Sorry.
Mooney.
I thought you were talking about John Mooney, but no.
No, not Mooney.
You've got a history with these big guys.
Big dude. I can't remember his name. Big white bloke.
Colton.
Yeah.
Iverson.
He could have some massive games. I think Benny predicted he's going to have the... What did you say? Top 3 double-doubles?
He's literally a 10 and 10 guy.
I'm seeing DeWalt and Robinson. I reckon they're going to get a few double-doubles and assists and points as they go, but we'll see. New Zealand have Tassie this week, who don't have a big man really that could stop Pardon. So I see Pardon probably going pretty big this week. So
they have good pick and roll defence, though. So generally, we'll see how it goes.
Yes, you're right. But yeah, I don't know. I still see them probably. He probably might score pretty big this week. But yeah, who knows?
He's in consideration for me as well. To wrap this up, start and sit. You got one. Bench one at power forward. The big banger, the big sauce, or Luke Travers. I'm not allowed to answer these because I generally get them wrong. Who are you going to start? Who are you going to bench one?
I'm a non-owner of bangers and LT, and I'd probably start LT.
I think I'd start LT as well, to be honest.
Seems safest.
Yeah,
So
I just think he's putting up points everywhere. Yep.
Gonna add one
Brisbane
more.
have got Sydney in Sydney and Melbourne in Melbourne this week, so I'm a bit scared about that. I think Sauce, I'd be going LT, Sauce, and then Big Banger, but I'm biased because I own LT and Sauce, probably.
I appreciate your honesty, mate. Benching the Big Banger, I think that's probably what you have to do while he's still getting still going. And if you've got
Still
Source,
easy.
it might be literally your last opportunity to start Source. So why not enjoy
Have fun.
it?
Yep.
Enjoy.
I like it. As always, we are on Twitter at @bball_blokes, Basketball Blokes on Facebook, and also www.basketballblokes.com for all your NBL fantasy information needs. Fellas, it's been good until we meet again, hopefully in the same room next week.
Fingers crossed.
See you later.
Thank you.